we remember our games. Whether it's because they were fun or they were memorable, it's hard to forget the minutes to hours to days we throw ourselves into simulated worlds for enjoyment, especially when there are just so many. From the fun games we play with our friends to the worlds we wish to fully immerse ourselves in, there are also the ones that we become near and dear to. The ones that change us, for as long as we remember them. Of course, the first ones that would come to someone's mind would be Silent Hill, Pathologic, Celeste, Omori, Lisa, Undertale. Those kinds of games. The games that bring you a question and tell you to answer it. Not for the game, but for yourself. The games that intend to be more than just a game. I have one of those games. One that I don't hear many people talk about, then or now. A game I came home from when I was excited after school, excited to watch what new game my favorite YouTuber Markiplier was going to play today. And to start us off, I'd like to ask a few questions. Every story has a theme. Every story has a message. This is what we were taught in school when it came to literature and storytelling in general. And yeah, that's true. But sometimes it's a little more complicated. Much like a piece of art, it's very hard to pinpoint exactly why we enjoy looking at it. The definition of art gives us some insight, but is that really what goes through our head when looking at Pablo Picasso's Buste de Femme Assis? Or Starry Night? Or just any piece of art in general? When you look at it, how does it make you feel? How do you interpret it? Well, I asked this question on my Twitter. Where does the beauty in traditional art come from? I'm curious to see what you all think. And the responses proved the point I'm trying to make here. I really think it depends on the piece, because something like The Great Wave, it comes for the vibrancy of the colors, contrasting the violence of the subject. But then pieces that came from the Hudson River School era, the beauty comes from the natural landscape and the painter's ability to capture it. Genuinely, I believe that the beauty in traditional art comes from knowing the artist spent hours or even days on this one piece, doing everything by hand on a physical canvas. There is a real beauty and charm in that. Studied this for 2 years, can't tell you why. Colors on a canvas just make me feel so much, it confuses and amazes me. Here are some of my favorites of mine. Post-Impressionism and Rococo seem to be the styles that interest me most, because they feel real, they look like a memory. Just trying to comprehend the skill and talent and patience this kind of stuff takes just leaves me in absolute awe, which I think adds to the beauty of it all. Thinking of the process and thought behind each brushstroke also leaves me totally dumbfounded. The beauty we find in art is our own. Interpretation is what brings beauty to our eyes and helps us find meaning in art, not just in a frame, but in all media. This is the point I was trying to prove. In a world of sequels and spin-offs, hell, even full-blown fleshed-out cinematic universes, the space left for interpretation is small. And before I sound like some crazy person worshipping the word of interpretive art, hey, just a quick update, there was actually an Eve remake recently announced, but hopefully that doesn't completely invalidate my point here. I should mention that works without such things as interpretation can still be great. It's awesome to just sit down and watch something you enjoy. It's why I find myself enjoying things like Dragon Ball, despite it mostly just being dudes punching each other a lot. But it's definitely something else to have that sense of personal thought in a piece of media you enjoy. It allows you to relate it to yourself a lot easier, makes it much more personal. Take, for example, Pathologic's Sand Plague. Throughout Pathologic, and despite playing as one of 3 doctors trying to find a cure for it, you never find a concrete origin for the disease that's plaguing the town. Each doctor has their own theories ranging from the town being a dirty, outdated place to new architecture piercing the skin of the philosophical bull the indigenous people of the town believe is the earth we live on. But these are just exactly that, theories. The game never gives you a concrete answer, and because of that, every ending feels almost bittersweet or incomplete. By the end, this allows you as the player to theorize on what you believe was the cause of the plague. Whether you're right or not is not something we can prove, but to prove it wouldn't be the point either. The point is that in this imagination playground, it's your interpretation, an interpretation you can learn from, whether it was the artist's intention or not. This is where I find interpretation most useful in media, not just in traditional art, but in all forms. The real highlight of today's video is the 2012 indie RPG Maker horror game, Ib. It was created by indie dev Kouri during the large spike of RPG Maker horror game releases that spanned from about 2012 to 2016. This spike also included titles such as The Witch's House, Mad Father, and Aoni. The Witch's House and Mad Father became quite well known among that time for featuring consistent stories and, most well known of all, horrible, horrible, horrible ways for your innocent character to die. While the latter, Aoni, features an interesting but quite bizarre narrative with a very funny appearing antagonist to suit. And well, Ib wasn't nearly as well known or regarded. I wouldn't say it got the underdog treatment, because I am disregarding the large amount of attention it did get. However, it definitely didn't receive the attention the other 3 got, or that it deserved. I can agree, there is a valid reason for this. Ib, at its core, is a very short game, reaching at about 4 hours to complete on the first run. To extend itself and to further elaborate on its world, for what little it does, it encourages you to get every ending. So much so that once the credits end and you see the ending title card, the game throws you right back to the beginning. As if it's trying to tell you, see what else you can do. While it does this, and different actions during the story, big and small, can lead to very different endings, Ib is still a game, well, with themes of gameplay. Besides a New Game Plus dungeon, which has nothing to do with the game's shaky canon, it's all the same puzzles, mechanics, and areas you saw in the first run. The game definitely hides little details you could miss on the first run and see on the next, but for most people, I could totally understand why this isn't enough to keep them playing. Especially when the game includes 10 endings, with only 4 being non-unique and just variations of the same. 11 if you include a, quote, non-canon ending that the developer denounced. Seemingly denounced. With that being said, not enough people would see everything the game had to offer, or even dedicate enough thought towards it to see what it could become, or to understand its theme. Ib almost feels like an incomplete story. If you were to ask a fan of the game what its theme was, they'd probably tell you. And if you were to ask another, theirs might be different. However, in the most interesting case, they wouldn't have an answer at all. Ib's main theme isn't very apparent. and in congruence with its world building, it feels like it's not even there. While this definitely appears to be a large flaw and probably helped delve it into obscurity, what if we don't look at it that way? People eventually lost interest, and the few who didn't stopped talking about it. Of course, there are those who do remember it, and to those people, if you're watching this right now, I hope I exceed your expectations, or at least meet them. But there are also those who couldn't forget it, even if they tried. Myself being among them. It's haunted me long. A story seemingly without a theme, while those existing are usually made to just be fun. Not something like Ebe, but what if there is a theme? One to understand, you have to see Ebe not as a game, but as... We open the game and start off with a dark screen and some dialogue. This sets up our exposition, with a gray afternoon and Ebe and her family on their way to an art gallery. The next set of dialogue is either her mother or father talking to her about her handkerchief, asking her if she remembered it. The screen then fades into the entrance of the game, with Ebe and her family walking into the art gallery. Ebe's mother then turns to her and explains how this art gallery is full of art made by an artist named Guertena, who we'll get back to later. In the meantime, Ebe's mother and father need to get pamphlets. Ebe insists she'll be good and heads off on her own to look at the works of art Guertena's mind had to offer. Paintings such as The Coughing Man, and paintings with words she does not understand. It's hard being a 9-year-old. With nowhere left to go, she continues upstairs, finding more paintings that are being viewed by other patrons, though eventually she walks into a large, empty hallway. The only life besides her being the large and seemingly important mural. World. The lights flicker. Panicked, she returns to the other rooms. All the people once there are all gone. The front entrance is locked, and when she looks out the window, pouring blood covers her view. She runs back to of the deep. No one is here. No human, at least. The coughing man seems to cough. The paintings are alive. She goes back upstairs and spots a man walking past the window. How could... She checks it, but nothing. What kind of twisted show of horror has she found herself in? She finds herself back to the mural. Blue liquid leaking from behind the frame. Come, Ebe, stamped below her. The blue liquid has changed into something legible. Come down below, Ebe. I'll show you someplace secret. Down below? The deep? Blue footprints meet her there, leading directly inside what she had previously assumed to be just a simple artwork. Following in the blue footsteps, it engulfs her. Welcome to the world of Guertena. Throughout the rest of Ebe, the world of Guertena serves as a puzzle-filled horror show that we'll spend the rest of the game in. This world serves as an embodiment of the creativity and passion Guertena put into his works, and more so, a world built entirely around his mind, only just specifically his creative process. If you just so happen to search a specific bookshelf in a very tense part of the game, you can find a page of Guertena's diary. In it, we get a bit of the thought that pushes Guertena to make his art the way he does. It's said that spirits dwell in objects into which people put their feelings. I've always thought that. If that's true, then the same must be true of artwork. So today, I shall immerse myself to work, so as to impart my own spirit into my creations. At this point in the game, we've come across many pieces of artwork that seem to be sentient, or living at least. The coughing man, the lady in the frame, a moving statue, and even a lady in red. Could this be the fruits of his work? And if so, how? Could this whole world be the fruits of his creative process? As for Mr. Guertena himself, besides his diary and just the world itself, nothing else is really known about him or given to us throughout the game. The best interpretation we can make is based on the way his creations and his world act towards Ebe, which is aggressive. But what exactly can we take from that? Are they angry, vengeful, scared? Are they really an accurate reflection of the artist who created them? There is something we can take away from this. In fact, there's multiple things we can take away from it, but which one? And is it the right one? Is it what we're expected to believe? And what does it have to do with Ebe? Why is it so that when her rose withers, which acts as our health, she too withers? Guertena, his world, and the things that live inside of it are very, very, very confusing to understand. Hell, I don't understand them, and I'm the one making the video because I believe I've figured something out about this game others have overlooked. But they're still important to my conclusion. As to how, I'll let you think on it, and I'll let you decide. Eventually, after the first initial set of puzzles, Ebe comes across something very interesting. It seemingly appears to be another person, lying face down on the ground. They seem almost comatose. Ebe tries to wake them up, but to no avail. Is this another real person? One also with a rose? Their rose has been lost. Ebe gets their rose back, and after a moment of shock, they introduce themselves as Garry. Garry accompanies Ebe throughout this game as her protector, and kind of her voice, making them essential for discussion. Depending on the direction you take the game, Ebe and Garry will always have a good relationship, one from great to good. Garry is polite and cautious. They want nothing more than for Ebe to be safe and to get out of this world safely, whether it's with them or not. Garry can very easily become liked, allowing players to attach to them. Something about Garry is just so admirable, especially when I was a kid. Their instant attachment towards Ebe and desire to keep her safe, they are quick to be polite and open-minded. It creates a good person, and a good character. And at least through dialogue, that's the most we know about them. Garry seems to have an interesting fashion sense. When brought up by Ebe, they respond, My coat's all torn and ragged. No, that's on purpose. That's just the design. Of course, if you're dead set on figuring out more about them, how can you tell they're being honest? Could they be homeless? Well, judging from another interaction where they babble about wishing they wore something more professional, maybe not. Though, it still makes you wonder what led to them liking fashion like that. Oh well, I guess it's not too important. Except for now, where small details like this are important. With nothing but context clues, what can we tell about Garry? Well, I don't know. But I don't think Garry is a happy person. When Ebe wakes up from a faint she had, she finds herself wrapped in Garry's coat. When Garry comes to check on her, they let her know there's a piece of lemon candy in the pocket if she ever wants it. So, what's so significant about that? Garry might be a recovering smoker. For nicotine addicts, lemon candy is a good way to fight off the craving they so often suffer from. Why else would Garry be carrying this with them at such a random point in time? Why is that lemon candy significant enough for them to have? Though, to further push my initial point, we need to ask, why would Garry suffer from nicotine addiction in the first place? Well, my initial theory might have something to do with it. Nicotine addiction can occur for literally any reason, and it's a serious problem. My guess here is that Garry might be finding themselves sad often. It's not taboo for someone to try and calm their nerves with nicotine. In fact, I had family members who were thrown into addiction for that exact reason. Though, of course, I could be totally wrong. The only other evidence I have in support of this is Garry's fascination with the painting The Hanged Man. Then that brings into question, if Garry is considering things like that, is that why they're so quick to protect and care for Ebe? Like it's a newfound purpose? I don't know. And I probably sound like a madman rambling on about vague theories based off vague evidence. But isn't that a part of the fun? Whoever Garry is or was, they are who we know now, who we are shown. But why aren't we given more? I'll let you think on it, and I'll let you decide. Meet Mary, the third protagonist in our story. Mary is a young girl, supposedly about the same age as Ebe, and she very much prefers Ebe's company over Garry's. Whether it's because she finds Garry scary or doesn't like them, she comes off as very innocent and a bit of a naive asshole towards Garry. She, however, does have a yellow rose, and Garry happily welcomes her to the party, and yet we know as little of where she came from as I have confidence on Garry's Mary was supposedly Guertena's last work of his life. While the girl appears almost lifelike, she is not based on a real person. And yes, this is her home. Despite what I've just told you, I see Mary's a tragic tale. Unlike Garry, Mary's a character who's made out to be dumb and unlikable, quite the polar opposite. She seems selfish and, well, naive. But you'd assume we're to expect that out of a 9-year-old girl, right? Mary is, to put it blunt, a child. A painting child, yeah, but she's still a child. And in this cursed gallery, she's Guertena's most lifelike work. I want to put down the idea on the table that maybe Mary's actions had nothing to do with her existence as a painting, but as a child. Children always have a warped view of themselves and the world. I know I did. From that, they can be very selfish, especially Mary. Being a child and having to live in a world as awful as this never gave her a chance to mature. Not even a chance to age. She's a child, and she's desperate. She wants out. Which is why she breaks the news to us that only 2 people can leave Guertena's world. There always has to be someone there. I want to leave this place myself and live outside. But unless I take the place of someone from outside, it seems I can't do that. Won't somebody come soon? somebody come soon? It makes sense the reason why she was so jealous of Garry. She wants to leave with Eve, the other young girl, not Garry, and Eve has a good relationship with them too. What is she to do? Her chance to finally leave the world she's been trapped in is leaving her grasp, and there's little she can do about it. But if we're to go off my theory of her actions being based off of her innocence, then what makes her so different from the other paintings? I'm gonna cut myself off here on Mary to save you the time. And instead, ask a question. Have you noticed that every question we've asked has gone unanswered, and only led us to more questions? Every theory is exactly that, just a theory, and almost nothing we try to use to build the world doesn't end up giving us a full picture, only more pieces. I think it's time for the conclusion. I've gone over a few events of the game. And hell, I haven't even discussed the ending of the game. I'm not going to do that. Because I need to enforce my point. The entire point of this video. I have told you very little about the game, because I want you to go play it. You may be asking, that was the point of the video? No, it wasn't. But it'll help prove my point. Eve has no theme, no message, no beauty. Except our own. This game may be full of coincidences, since things may never go confirmed. But it is no coincidence Eve takes place in an art gallery. It is no coincidence the game is framed in a painting canvas. To understand Eve, you have to look at it not as a game, but as art. You have to interpret it your own way. So go play it. My interpretation? I don't think it matters. Well, maybe you deserve it after sitting through almost 30 minutes of my mad ramblings. I see the game, the World of Guertena, the fabricated world, as a canvas. And Ebe, Garry, and Mary, the subjects that are the painting. Whatever their lives before and after the events of the game are not shown to us, and we are only given hints to suggest possibilities outside of it. The possibilities we can interpret ourselves. However, what we are given are characters we can love. No ending is canon, not even the best one. There is no telling what happens after the events of the game besides what we make it, what makes us the most happy, what beauty we draw from that piece of art. Because that's what this was about. The characters. The subjects of our painting. It's clear to me that this is the case when we still don't know how Guertena's world came to be. None of the endings explain it. Only the endings give us the fate of our subjects. But even that is not set in canon, only interpretable. Eve and its characters were made to allow you to interpret a theme. Your own theme. They were the painting. Guertena's world was the canvas. And whether or not it was the artist's intention, that is my interpretation of Ebe.